Do you still remember the cold, sharp gaze of Timothy Dalton in The Living Daylights? Behind those legendary moments hides a darker story. Stars haunted by Nazi prisons, shattered marriages, and secret medical tragedies that left many of your idols completely unrecognizable. Get ready to expose the tragic, unrecognizable reality of these icons in 2026. Desmond Llewellyn as Q. Desmond Llewellyn was born on September 12, 1914, in Newport, Wales. At 73 years old, he played Q, the eccentric MI6 scientist who equips James Bond with ingenious gadgets in The Living Daylights. His sharp humor and steady presence quietly made Q one of the most loved figures in the Bond series. Yet away from the cameras, Llewellyn's life revolved around a marriage that slowly turned into heartbreak. He married Pamela Mary Pantlin in 1938, and their relationship lasted more than 60 years. In the final decade of their life together, Pamela developed Alzheimer's disease, and the illness began erasing the memories of the man who had spent his entire life beside her. Llewellyn poured his earnings from late Bond films into her care while still appearing in productions such as The World Is Not Enough and attending events celebrating his work in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That devotion quietly drained his strength, but he refused to stop working. Years of stress collided with old war trauma that had never fully faded. Llewellyn had spent 5 years as a prisoner of war during World War II, an experience that left deep psychological scars. He rarely spoke about it publicly, yet those who knew him said the memories never disappeared. Then tragedy struck suddenly. On December 19th, 1999, while driving home from a book signing for Q, the biography of Desmond Llewellyn, his car collided head-on with another vehicle on the A27 near Berwick in East Sussex. He suffered massive internal injuries and died shortly afterward at 85 years old, only weeks after the premiere of The World Is Not Enough. His funeral was held at St. Mary the Virgin Church in Sussex. Llewellyn left behind a cinematic legacy spanning 17 Bond films and an estimated net worth of about $5.5 million. Robert Brown as M. Robert Brown was born on July 23, 1921, in Swanage, Dorset, England. At 66 years old, he played M, the stern head of MI6 who commands James Bond in The Living Daylights. His controlled authority helped maintain the serious tone of the film and reinforced the power structure behind Bond's missions. Behind that disciplined image stood a personal life filled with turbulence. Brown married 4 times, first to Layla N. Gould, then Mary Elizabeth Sellers, later Anna Catherine Quarnstrom, and finally Elise T. Pogowski. 3 of those marriages ended in divorce, leaving a trail of emotional strain that followed him through his career. Colleagues noticed that the normally confident actor became increasingly guarded whenever his family life was mentioned. The pressure surrounding his Bond role added another layer of tension. Brown stepped into the position of M after the death of Bernard Lee, the original actor who had defined the character. Critics constantly compared the 2 men, and Brown felt the weight of replacing a legend. Sadly, he died on November 11, 2003, at the age of 82. His passing occurred quietly, without the grand tributes often given to Bond stars, reflecting the private life he had chosen in his final years. Over decades in film and television, including roles connected to productions like Ben-Hur and the Bond franchise, he accumulated an estimated net worth of around $2.2 million. Walter Gotell as General Anatol Gogol. Walter Gotell was born on March 15, 1924, in Bonn, Germany. At 63 years old, he played General Anatol Gogol, the calculating head of the Soviet KGB in The Living Daylights. His calm but intimidating presence gave the Cold War tension in the film a sense of authenticity that audiences instantly recognized. His private life, however, was shaped by sudden loss and fragile stability. Gotell married actress Yvonne Hills in 1958, and together they had a daughter named Carol, born in 1960. Their marriage lasted 16 years until Hills died in 1974, a devastating moment that forced Gotell to rebuild his life while continuing his demanding career. That same year, he remarried Celeste F. Mitchell, trying to regain balance while working steadily in films such as The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker. Off-screen, he quietly expanded into business, investing his acting income into engineering companies and even maintaining a farm in Ireland, creating a second life far removed from the film industry. But the greatest battle of his life arrived quietly and cruelly. In the final years of his career, Gotell was diagnosed with cancer, a disease that slowly drained his strength while he continued working. Even as the illness progressed, he remained determined to finish his professional commitments. Finally, he died on May 5, 1997, at the age of 73, after a prolonged struggle with cancer. By the time of his passing, his work in film, television, and business had built an estimated net worth of around $1.8 million, leaving behind a quiet but memorable legacy within the Bond universe. Geoffrey Keen as Sir Frederick Grey. Geoffrey Keen was born on August 21, 1916, in Wallingford, Oxfordshire, England. At 71 years old, he played Sir Frederick Grey, the British Minister of Defence in The Living Daylights. His authoritative presence strengthened the political backbone of the film and made him a familiar figure across multiple Bond adventures. Behind the dignified government official he portrayed on screen stood a personal life marked by repeated emotional upheaval. Keen married Hazel Terry in 1940, but the relationship eventually collapsed in divorce. He later married Madeline Howell, yet that union also ended, adding another fracture to his private life. His third marriage to Doris Groves in 1960 finally brought a period of stability and the birth of their daughter, Gemma Hyde. During these years, Keen buried himself in work, appearing in films such as Dr. Zhivago and The Spy Who Loved Me, becoming one of the most dependable character actors in British cinema. That relentless dedication to work also became his shield against emotional strain. Keen built a reputation for being demanding on set, insisting on precision in every scene. Some colleagues found him intimidating, yet those who knew him closely said the strict discipline hid a deeply shy personality. Sadly, he died on November 3, 2005, at 89 years old, at Denville Hall in Northwood, London, a retirement home known for caring for veteran actors. Through appearances in productions like Dr. Zhivago, Born Free, and the Bond franchise, Keen accumulated an estimated net worth of about $3.1 million, leaving behind the image of the stern defense minister who helped guide Britain through the cinematic crises of the Bond era. Timothy Dalton as James Bond. Timothy Dalton was born on March 21, 1946, in Colwyn Bay, Wales. At 41 years old, he played James Bond, the darker, colder British spy at the center of The Living Daylights. His intense and serious portrayal reshaped the character, giving the film a sharper and more realistic edge than the Bond audiences had known before. But stepping into Bond's shoes came with brutal pressure. Dalton arrived right after Roger Moore, a legend whose version of Bond had dominated the series for years. Fans expected charm and humor, yet Dalton delivered a colder and more ruthless spy. The reaction divided audiences instantly. As he tried to defend his interpretation in films like License to Kill, chaos erupted behind the scenes. Legal battles between studios froze the franchise, and Dalton suddenly found himself trapped in a 6-year career limbo from 1989 to 1994, unable to return to Bond while the industry debated the future of the character. His personal life was equally complicated. Dalton never married, yet his relationships often attracted intense media attention. His long romance with Vanessa Redgrave lasted from 1971 to 1986, linking two powerful acting careers before ending quietly. In the 1990s, he began a relationship with musician Oksana Grigorieva, and the couple welcomed a son in 1997. Their separation around 2003 was surrounded by tension and rumors of control disputes, leaving Dalton even more protective of his private life. As of 2026, Timothy Dalton is 80 years old and continues to live a quiet but respected life between London, West Hollywood, and Antigua. Though he stepped away from major leading roles, he still appears occasionally in television and voice acting, including projects like Toy Story 4 and Doom Patrol. With a career spanning theater, film, and television, Dalton is believed to hold an estimated net worth of about $12 million. Caroline Bliss as Miss Moneypenny. Caroline Bliss was born on July 7, 1961, in London, England. At 25 years old, she played Miss Moneypenny, the young MI6 secretary who works beside M in The Living Daylights. Her fresh and modern interpretation brought a new energy to the character and marked a dramatic shift in the Bond office dynamic. Yet that opportunity quickly turned into a storm. Bliss had been chosen to replace Lois Maxwell, the beloved actress who had played Moneypenny for decades. Fans reacted fiercely. Letters flooded in criticizing her appearance and accusing the producers of ruining the character. The backlash was so intense that Bliss later admitted it deeply shook her confidence. Even while appearing in the next Bond film, License to Kill, she felt trapped between the expectations of the audience and the pressure of carrying a legacy she had inherited overnight. The emotional toll slowly pushed her away from acting. Although she had trained at the prestigious Bristol Old Vic Theatre School, and once portrayed Princess Diana in Charles and Diana, a royal love story, Bliss began to rethink her future. Rather than fight the hostility surrounding her Bond role, she stepped away from the spotlight and pursued a quieter path connected to art therapy and creative work, choosing personal stability over Hollywood recognition. Today, Caroline Bliss is 65 years old and lives in Cornwall, England, with her husband, Andy Seckham, an actor and author, and their 2 children. She has remained largely outside the film industry, appearing only occasionally in small creative projects while focusing on family life. Though her time as Moneypenny was brief, it remains a memorable chapter in Bond history, and her career and artistic pursuits have brought her an estimated net worth of around $1.1 million. Joe Don Baker as Brad Whitaker. Joe Don Baker was born on February 12, 1936, in Groesbeck, Texas, USA. At 51 years old, he played Brad Whitaker, the ruthless American arms dealer manipulating global conflicts in The Living Daylights. His intimidating presence gave the film one of its most unpredictable villains, turning Whitaker into a dangerous and unforgettable antagonist. Off-screen, Baker's personal life never found the stability his characters often projected. He married Maria Dolores Rivero Torres in 1969, but the relationship collapsed in 1980, ending in divorce after years of tension and distance caused by his demanding career. The breakup left him living largely alone in Hollywood, throwing himself into work to escape the silence of an empty home. Around the same period, he continued building his reputation through films like Walking Tall and Charlie Varick, eventually shocking audiences by accepting a supporting role in the Bond universe simply because he wanted to experience that cinematic world. But the hardest battle of his life arrived decades later. A long history of heavy smoking began damaging his lungs during the final decade of his life, causing severe respiratory problems. Even while dealing with repeated hospital visits and painful treatments, Baker remained determined to stay active in the industry, proud of the unusual distinction of returning to the Bond franchise later as CIA agent Jack Wade in GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies. Chemotherapy and breathing complications slowly weakened him, yet the tough Texan attitude he was famous for never disappeared. Joe Don Baker died on May 7, 2025, at 89 years old, at an assisted living facility in Mission Hills, California, after a prolonged battle with lung cancer. He was later laid to rest at Oakwood Memorial Park Cemetery, closing the final chapter of a career that had spanned more than 5 decades in Hollywood. From the brutal sheriff in Walking Tall to the villain in the Bond universe, Baker built a reputation for playing powerful men on screen, and left behind an estimated net worth of about $3.2 million. Mariam Dabo as Cara Milovi. Mariam Dabo was born on December 27, 1960, in London, England. At 26 years old, she played Cara Milovi, the innocent Czech cellist who becomes Bond's ally in The Living Daylights. Her emotional and vulnerable performance added warmth to the film and made Cara one of the most memorable Bond girls of the late 1980s. Years later, her personal life seemed to find the stability many actors search for. In 2003, she married film director Hugh Hudson, the Oscar-nominated creator of Chariots of Fire, and the couple built a quiet life together away from the chaos of Hollywood. The marriage became her emotional anchor, while she continued working in films such as Dr. Zhivago and Dorian Gray, and she also helped celebrate Bond history by writing and producing the documentary Bond Girls Are Forever. But that stability was shattered when Hudson died in 2023, leaving her facing a devastating loss that pushed her into a deep period of grief. Even before that tragedy, Dabo had already survived a life-threatening medical crisis. In 2007, she suffered a subarachnoid brain hemorrhage, a sudden rupture of blood vessels in the brain that required emergency surgery lasting several hours. Recovery was long and painful. She spent years relearning basic abilities like speaking clearly and walking steadily. The near-fatal experience changed her outlook completely, inspiring her to produce documentaries about survivors of similar medical trauma and to advocate for awareness about neurological recovery. As of 2026, Mariam Dabo is 65 years old and continues to live in England while occasionally appearing in independent film and creative projects. Though she works far less frequently than during her Bond years, her legacy remains tied to one of the most emotionally grounded Bond heroines ever written. Through decades of acting, writing, and documentary work, she has accumulated an estimated net worth of around $2.3 million. Jeroen Krabbe as General Georgy Koskov. Jeroen Krabbe was born on December 5, 1944, in Amsterdam, Netherlands. At 42 years old, he played General Georgy Koskov, the charming yet deceptive Soviet defector in The Living Daylights. His layered performance added a dangerous twist to the story, turning Koskov into one of the film's most memorable double-crossing figures. Behind the confident villain he portrayed on screen stood a man constantly balancing two worlds. Krabbe married Herma van Gemert in 1964, and together they raised three sons, Martijn, Jasper, and Jacob. But success in Hollywood soon created distance inside the family. His career required constant travel between the Netherlands and the United States, and the glamorous Hollywood environment never fully suited him. While appearing in international productions like The Fugitive and later Transporter 3, he admitted that the industry's shine often felt strangely empty. Those long periods away from home created tension in the early years of his marriage and forced him to rethink what truly mattered outside the spotlight. That inner conflict pushed Krabbe toward other creative outlets. Acting alone no longer satisfied him, so he turned seriously to painting, an art form he had practiced since childhood. His paintings became respected enough to appear on Dutch postage stamps, and he later published the art book Schilder, presenting a collection of his works. Painting became a quiet escape from the pressures of film sets and international travel, allowing him to rebuild a sense of personal balance that Hollywood had disrupted. Now, Jeroen Krabbe is 81 years old and continues to divide his time between creative pursuits, occasional film appearances, and painting. Though he works less frequently in cinema today, his roles in productions such as The Fugitive and the Bond franchise remain widely remembered. Over decades in film, directing, and art, Krabbe has built an estimated net worth of about $5.4 million while maintaining a life that blends cinema with his enduring passion for painting. John Rhys Davies as General Leonid Pushkin. John Rhys Davies was born on May 5, 1944, in Salisbury, Wiltshire, England. At 42 years old, he played General Leonid Pushkin, the calm and honorable Soviet intelligence chief in The Living Daylights. His authoritative presence helped ground the film's Cold War tension and gave the story a powerful political counterbalance. His personal life, however, became far more complicated than the calm diplomat he portrayed. Rhys Davies married Suzanne Wilkinson in 1966, and they had 2 sons together. Their marriage later fractured, and although the couple separated in 1985, they never formally divorced due to religious beliefs and financial concerns. The unusual arrangement often drew media attention, yet the bond between them remained strong. When Wilkinson developed Alzheimer's disease, Rhys Davies personally helped care for her during her final years. In 2004, he began a relationship with Lisa Manning, and they later had a daughter together while dividing their lives between New Zealand and the Isle of Man. Another battle unfolded during one of the biggest productions of his career. While playing Gimli in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Rhys Davies suffered severe allergic reactions to the silicone prosthetics used for the character's heavy makeup. The reaction caused painful burns, swelling, and bleeding on his skin, yet he continued filming day after day to complete the role. As of 2026, John Rhys Davies is 82 years old and continues to appear occasionally in film, voice acting, and fan conventions celebrating his long career. After decades in the entertainment industry, Rhys Davies is estimated to have accumulated a net worth of around $5.2 million, reflecting a career defined by endurance, powerful character roles, and remarkable resilience. Art Malik as Kamran Shah. Art Malik was born on November 13, 1952, in Bahawalpur, Pakistan. At 34 years old, he played Kamran Shah, the Afghan resistance leader who becomes an uneasy ally of James Bond in The Living Daylights. His performance added political realism to the story and helped expand the film's Cold War landscape beyond the traditional spy narrative. But behind that rising success, Malik's personal life nearly collapsed under the weight of sudden fame. He had married Gina Rowe, a fellow student from the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, in 1980, long before Hollywood noticed him. When his career exploded in the mid-1980s after roles in productions like The Jewel in the Crown, the attention and praise quickly went to his head. Malik later admitted that the pressure and ego led him into heavy drinking, bringing the chaos home and pushing his marriage to the breaking point. At the same time, work slowed down and financial trouble grew. By 1993, he owed £55,000 to the bank and £32,000 to tax authorities, placing him dangerously close to bankruptcy. Those years also exposed another painful reality in the industry. As a British actor of Asian background during the 1980s, Malik was repeatedly offered stereotypical roles: terrorists, villains, or nameless militants. Even after appearing in projects such as True Lies and other international productions, he had to fight constantly to avoid being trapped inside those narrow roles. The frustration, combined with financial stress and the collapse of his confidence, forced him to confront the destructive habits that had almost cost him both his career and his family. Today, Art Malik is 73 years old and lives quietly with his wife, Gina Rowe, with whom he eventually reconciled after those turbulent years. Together, they raised their daughters, Jessica and Kira, rebuilding the stability that once seemed lost. Though he works less frequently today, his performances in The Jewel in the Crown, True Lies, and the Bond franchise continue to be remembered. After decades in film and television, Malik has accumulated an estimated net worth of about $2.5 million, the result of a career shaped as much by resilience as by talent. Andreas Wisniewski as Nekros. Andreas Wisniewski was born on July 3, 1959, in West Berlin, Germany. At 28 years old, he played Nekros, the ruthless blonde assassin who hunts Bond across Europe in The Living Daylights. His chilling performance and athletic fighting style turned Nekros into one of the film's most memorable killers. That success seemed like the beginning of something huge. Wisniewski quickly followed the role with another high-profile villain appearance in Die Hard, playing one of Hans Gruber's henchmen, and later appeared in the blockbuster Mission: Impossible. Yet the very intensity that made him famous soon became a trap. Casting directors repeatedly saw him only as a silent enforcer or terrorist, and meaningful roles began to disappear. The frustration of being permanently typecast pushed Wisniewski to rethink his life. Instead of chasing roles that rarely came, he slowly stepped away from the Hollywood spotlight. Over time, he returned to Europe, appearing occasionally in productions like Death Machine while directing the short film Inspiration. During this period, he began practicing Zen Buddhism, using meditation to cope with the disappointment that followed his early success in action cinema. As of 2026, Andreas Wisniewski is 66 years old and lives in Berlin with his family and 3 children. He keeps a low public profile, focusing on spiritual practice and selective creative work rather than constant film roles. Over the course of his career, he is believed to have built an estimated net worth of around $1.3 million. Virginia Hay as Rubovich. Virginia Hay was born on June 19, 1952, in Sydney, Australia. At 34 years old, she played Rubovich, the mysterious companion connected to Soviet intelligence in The Living Daylights. Though her role was brief, her striking screen presence added a layer of intrigue to the film's tense political world. Away from Bond, Hay's life followed a far less glamorous path than many expected. She had once been discovered by a magazine editor while waiting at a bus stop, launching a successful modeling career before transitioning into acting. Her bold image helped her land roles in productions like Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, and later the sci-fi series Farscape. Yet maintaining that glamorous screen image came at a cost. Hay followed extreme dieting and demanding beauty routines, and the chemicals from film makeup and adhesives gradually damaged her immune system. The pressure of maintaining perfection began to affect her long-term health. The real physical toll became undeniable during the filming of Farscape, where she portrayed the blue-skinned priestess, Pao Zoto Zhan. The heavy prosthetic makeup required hours of preparation each day, covering her head and chest in layers of glue and paint. Over time, the strain triggered internal bleeding in her kidneys, forcing her to leave the series earlier than planned. Years later, another devastating diagnosis arrived. In 2022, Hay revealed she had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, confronting the most serious health battle of her life. In 2026, Virginia Hay is 73 years old and lives quietly in the United Kingdom, far from the pressures of the entertainment industry. She has devoted much of her life to meditation teaching, natural healing practices, and spiritual guidance, while also creating fragrances and healing gemstone products. Her decades of work in modeling, television, and film have resulted in an estimated net worth of about $1.6 million. Time has changed the stars of The Living Daylights, 1987, in ways few fans expected. Some continued long careers in film and television, while others quietly stepped away from the spotlight, and a few sadly are no longer with us. But their roles in this classic Bond film remain unforgettable. Which cast member surprised you the most when you saw them then and now? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories about your favorite movie stars.